Hi, this is Anna Imagination with a Healing Garden, and welcome to Subconscious Dialogues. All right, so this is me finally going, oh, there it is. There's the big answer. And I'm just at a point where I'm really sick and tired of not having this answer. And I finally figured it out and I went, there, boom, it is. When I first read my beautiful Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, that book really did a whole lot of your ethics needs to be the core. Make it your ethics. So I did. I made it my ethics. And that doesn't work. And I still love his book. It's one of the 3 psychology books that I actually kept in my library. So I'm huge on recommending it because he has a lot of beautiful, juicy information in that book. Read the book. That being said, he's wrong. And I read the book when I was 15 and I was starting out my philosophy research at that point. And I was like, no, that's not the answer. Well, at first I thought it was the answer. So I followed it. And I noticed the answer kept changing. That's where he went wrong. If the answer is solid, and he says this where he's right, if the answer is solid, it does not change. And he's right. If the answer is solid, it does not change. But ethics change. And that's where he had that wrong because he did not study perspective psychology, which is funny because the whole book actually talks about perspective. Page 90 in the paperback edition, in the trade paperback edition, he talks about perspective. Gorgeous. Just go to that page. There's like a whole little, it's the most beautiful part of the book is page 90 around that in that chapter area. Read the whole book, but that's really what resonated with me. So he talks a lot on ethics and absolutely he's right and he's wrong. And there's one thing he got wrong. And what he got wrong was the idea that ethics don't change. Yes, they do. Now, they don't change so much as they stack. Because you start off with one ethic and then you learn another and you internalize it. And it's the same ethic for everybody. It's in the same order for everybody. It's the stages of growth as outlined by Dr. Graves in psychology in the 1970s. But again, that information got shelved and there's a lot of people who figured perspective out but didn't articulate it. Whereas Dr. Graves articulated it, but he only took it to like level 4, maybe level 3. Where he introduces it and he's like, okay, so there's that. And then a lot of people did their own work with perspective and they all came to like, or this is it. And they said it here. And then other people came this far. And then I went all the way over here. And I went, this is it. And this is what I do. I created perspective psychology. And then after I created perspective psychology, I found Dr. Graves' work 2 months ago. And then I plugged it into my work and went, oh, look at that. Those were just the definitions I was lacking. So it all just click. And it's beautiful. So here's where Stephen Covey was off the mark. Ethics do change. There are 12 of them. At the moment, there are 9 known, identified ethics, and it's all stacked and laddered. And according to Dr. Graves and my own research, it absolutely stacks and builds. And it's the same for everybody. These are not negotiable. Now, either you've only learned the first 2 ethics, or you've learned the first 4 ethics, and that's where most everybody is, or you've learned the first 5 ethics. Most people have learned the first 5 ethics, but the first, second, and third ethic have been taken away from them. So you might have the 4th and the 5th ethic and nothing else because your abuse compromised your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd ethic. That's very common. That's where you get mental illness. So I'm going to throw all of that aside for a minute. At the end of the day, the ethics change. So that's not a good thing to base anything on. It's not solid because you need something that's stable. So then I did my research and I created the cognitive core concept. And when I created the cognitive core with identity, ethics, beliefs, the naming and perspective, which all makes sense and it's perfect and it's all aligned and it's beautiful and it's logical and it's simple, I went, identity. Identity is the core that everyone needs to be basing it off of. Which is kind of right, but I was using the wrong word. So basically there's this core, this cognitive core, and people base their foundation of their life on their religion. That's second perspective. They base the foundation of their life on love and relationships. That's the 4th perspective. Sometimes that's the 1st perspective. It depends. But this is where Stephen Covey comes in and says, no. You need to base it on ethics when he's kind of off the mark, just that little bit. It's the identity, which is actually the first part of the cognitive core. Ethics is the second part. Your ethics, what you value, is based off of your identity. So it really needs to be your identity. And your identity doesn't change because love is a state of being. It doesn't change. It's the energy. The energy is what you need to base your life off of. Your energy, the energy. The energy doesn't change. But the energy exists parallel with your identity. Your identity is your energy. Yeah, that's pretty much like the massive epiphany that I just had this morning, like 5 minutes ago, was, oh my God, this is how energy and identity are related. Your identity has an energy to it, and your energy is very much a frequency. Now, I have an hypothesis, and I went over this in one of my previous videos, but I'll go over it here now. So you have the circle of fifths in music. Let's talk physics first. So in physics, the whole thing is just basically the study of the universe and how we all interact with it. And it's all about frequency. Everything is frequency. Everything is frequency. Tesla agrees with me. Einstein agrees with me. Yeah, there you go. Do I really need to put anything else out there? Tesla and both Einstein said exactly what I'm saying, which is, yeah, everything is about frequency. When I studied music theory back in 1992, I looked at that gorgeous chapter in music theory and went, it's physics. It's frequency. And then I saw the world in frequency and I went, everything is frequency. And then later I found out that Tesla and Einstein sit there and say the same thing. So I'm like, all right, good. It's valid. Yeah. All right. So everything is fucking frequency. Get on this, figure this out, accept this. Everything is frequency. Now, molecules move. Molecules move. And depending upon how they move, depends on whether or not you get liquid or solid or a gas. The more the molecules move, the more they are a solid. The less they move, the more you get a gas. So it's like gas, liquid, solid. So we're just a bunch of friction because we're frequency. And those movements of those molecules put out a frequency. Following me? When you look at magnetic poles, you're actually looking how the frequency has a negative and a positive charge and how those frequencies move and push against each other. And if you look at electrical charge, that's also a frequency. And if you look at the spectrum of radiation, light, sound, it's all frequency. So I'm going to say again, everything is frequency. Now, music is my first and foremost love. It's my passion. It's my life. It's my first language. I learned frequency. I learned how to speak energy before I learned how to speak anything else. In fact, I grunted for the first 2 years of my life. Like I did not speak because I just grunted because I'm a generator, if you're into human design, but also because I spoke energy. I didn't speak English. English is my second language. So I was reading and playing with this frequency, with this energy for years, like 4 years before I even bothered talking. By the time I started talking, it was to articulate the frequency, which really upset my very restrictive conformist family. But that's another story. So frequency is everything. And when you look at music theory, there's this beautiful way of being able to measure the frequency waves and understand how the frequency works and how each vibrational frequency moves and negotiates and interacts in relativity to other frequencies. So everything with frequency is only two things: what the frequency is and how it relates to other things, relativity and the frequency itself. Now, in philosophy and in psychology, we call this the identity and the relativity, or in human behavior, our relatives. So there's you and they're your relatives. Convert this over to philosophy and it's the identity and the archetype. How are we related to the archetype? Take this over to music theory and it's the one chord versus the relative minor or the relative fifth or the other frequencies, because we are always, in order to understand who you are and what you are, according to philosophy, psychology, physics, and music theory, you have to be able to define you and your relationship to whatever it is around you. If you lack any of this information, you're not going to know who you are. You're just not going to know who you are. Now, if your relatives are abusive fucks and they're saying to you, we love you, while they're abusing you, that's going to fuck shit up. And in fact, that's what happens to all of us, is people who love us abuse us. And that's confusing because that doesn't make sense. Because if they love us, why are they hurting us? It doesn't make sense. So we seek understanding. This turns into trauma. We keep processing the trauma to try and understand it. And we never think to question, do they even love us? That's not even in our vocabulary because they've conditioned us so deeply that all parents love their children. No, they don't. Most parents do not love their children. Sorry. So that being said, you have this massive lying relative in comparison to who you are, and you're not allowed to know who you are. So of course, you're going to be confused. You're not going to know who you are. You're going to be all over the place, lost and feeling rejected and abandoned and confused because you don't know who you are, because you're not allowed to be who you are, and your relatives are lying to you and abusing you. So of course, we don't know who we are. Now, enter into the world of frequency. When you enter into the world of frequency and you have your energy and you have your identity, suddenly you're interacting with this gorgeous, beautiful frequency, the electromagnetic field of the world, and you have a relationship to it. Sorry, take a look at our brains. We are pure energy. We are electrical energy inside of our brains and all the way down our spinal cord. We are 100% energy. So when we have this energy, we are clearly going to have a relationship with that electromagnetic field. This is absolutely proven in physics. This is absolute physics. And when you look at how frequency interacts with everything, when you look at how molecules interact with everything, we are just this gorgeous sounding rod. We're a grounding rod. Look at us. Look at physics. Look at energy. We are a grounding rod. And our brain is a massive satellite setting out these massive frequency signals. Do the math. It's pure physics. It's all there. And when you have people who get to a certain point in their education with their gorgeous hippocampus turning on like a boom, 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 it's sending out these massive pulses. You are going to fucking feel it. So it's not in our heads. We're not crazy. We're not imagining it. It's physics. It's beautiful. And when you understand how we relate to physics, how we identify ourselves, and how we define what we love and what we feel, it all stems from what is our frequency. We all have our own defined frequency. Now, this is the beautiful part. If you look at the circle of fifths in music theory, boom, there are 12 parts of it, exactly like a clock, not a coincidence. You know what else has a circle of fifths? A circle of 12 spots? Boom, the zodiac. This is awesome. So my favorite music chord in the world is E major. Oh my God, do I love E major. I have a serious obsession with anything that is E major. And if you look at the zodiac and you turn it so that Capricorn, January, is at the top. For some reason, it always starts with Aries, and I don't know why. So let's assume that the top is Capricorn, and I'm a Taurus. Boom, fifth. You know what else is fifth? E major. I've been putting this theory by other musicians who are also huge into the zodiac, and every one of them lines up. Your frequency is your zodiac sign. Every single time. It's adding up. I will sit down with a music major and ask them, what is your musical chord? What is your favorite chord in the world? And they'll say this. And I'm like, now what's your zodiac? And every time it lines right up. That is your song. That is your frequency. Whatever it lines up with, whatever zodiac sign, take a look at it. Take a look at what your zodiac is, where you are on the chart, and then take a look at the circle of fifths, and that's your song. Now, the question is, are you a relative minor or are you the major? That's your frequency. Now, let's look at the world. When you take physics and you look at how physics plugs into everything, because everything is frequency, everything runs by its own vibrational frequency. Now, either you are tuned in to your song, to your frequency, to your one chord, your note, or you're not. And when you start to live by other people's standards, that's not going to feel good. My mother is a Capricorn, which means she's a C major. And my father is a Sagittarius, which means he is, I don't know, I have to look at the circle of fifths to figure out my father. But my mother is a Capricorn, and she goes by the song of C major. Now, here I am an E major, and she's been cramming me into her C major, and it doesn't feel good. Oh my God, it doesn't feel good. C major does not get along with E major. It does not feel good. So when I grew up, all of these things in my life had to literally tune into her frequency, and it hurts. And this is the way we all are, because everything is frequency. We are all tuned into that gorgeous electromagnetic field. And if you're not tuned into your own song, It's not going to feel good. Now, in addition to that, whenever it is we find something that we like or we love, that is actually us tuning into the energy, determining what makes up who we are. We are literally cherry picking things that are on our same vibrational wavelength, because everything is frequency, which is why you get people who are pulling and cherry picking an accumulation of certain frequencies to collect them. And the problem is, if you're not authentic, if you're lying to yourself, if you are being forced to live through other means, this isn't going to feel good. And as a result, we end up feeling miserable and we end up feeling in pain. And it really comes into fruition when you hit that sixth perspective and your hippocampus hooks up to that electromagnetic field. And suddenly you can feel how every bit of your lies, how every bit of your non-alignments, your discord is now lining up, and how much of it isn't you. So you end up having to literally do an energy cleanse to remove all of the parts of you that have no business being in your frequency. It's absolutely gorgeous, pure physics. It's absolutely stunning. So as I'm building my business and I'm putting all of this together, I'm realizing that I'm building my business around this concept of what is my song? Where is my frequency? And I've got a lot of people telling me to build it from the ground up. And every time I do, it's wrong. I have to build it from my frequency down, from what I envision down. When you build from the dream down, you know where you're going. You have a heading. If you build from the ground up, you're absolutely weaning it. You're doing a completely different mindset. The mindset then that you're doing is trial and error. And that's what you do when you don't know what you want. When you're going, I don't know. And there's a time and a place. There is a time and a place. Building your business is not the time and the place for that. So you step into life and you're going, all right, what do I want? Let's define the self. What frequency is mine? Now, if you know what frequency is yours, and if you know how all the other things in the world vibrate to your frequency and which ones are compatible with what, then it's fine. But we don't have those definitions yet. So we have to do a lot of trial and error. So you treat life, this is my favorite part of life, like a smorgasbord of adventure. I call that sunshine, imagination, adventures. And you step into this world and you sample a whole lot of stuff until you figure out which stuff feels good to you, and you collect that stuff and you put it in a box and you take it home with your box and you put it inside your room and you celebrate, and it becomes a shrine to the self. And it's awesome. And then you play with your stuff and then you go back out again and you get more stuff. And this is what we do. This is life. This is it right here. It is so much fucking fun, where you just go out and you sample more shit and you bring it back. This is life. And then once you understand who you are and you've got this great shrine of the self and you know who you are and you've defined who you are, now the next fun part is stepping back from all of this, going, okay, now I want to build a business. Now, building a business without having any idea what it is you want to do is absolutely shooting yourself in the foot, because wanting to build a business is one thing. It's like wanting to build a book. It's exactly like wanting to write a book, but having no characters, having no plot, having no idea where the book is going to go. So I'm going to tell you a story. I wrote my very first book because I was angry. I finished a romance novel and the woman was so pathetic. She was so incompetent. She was so insulting that I threw the book down and said, no, I can write better than that. I'm going to write about a queen who can throw fire and she's a witch. And I threw everything. I went all out. And then I threw her in this setting, Old Norse, the Viking realm, Norway in the 10th century. And I had no direction. I just wrote. And I wrote the biggest pile of shit you can imagine. I still have it. It was garbage. And then when I was done with it, I mean, it was garbage. It was like 50,000 words of just pure garbage. I went, yeah, I can do better. So I completely threw it out, metaphorically, because I still have it to remind me how shitty I used to write, for sentimental purposes. And I created a plan. I created a vision. I asked myself, what do I want this book to look like when I'm done? And I saw the world. That's when I dreamed it. I saw it. And then I went, all right, so now I've got the archetype. Now I have the heading. Now I've got this piece of shit. And I threw it away. I took the characters, only the characters, out of that book. I think I wrote a total of 500 words that I actually liked and I kept, but the rest of it went away. And I put my characters in this same setting different plot, different genre, different everything. And my goal was to get it to this point. So I wrote the book. Now, it was 7 years of writing this book because I rewrote it 3 times. And every time I rewrote it, I got it closer to this point until finally the standard rose and the standard rose. And it was finally here. Now, when it got here, that's when the book did awesome. That's when the book was done. That's when I published it. That's what's out and available today. Building a business is exactly like that. A lot of people start this business and they're down here and they're hodgepodging it and they're weaning it and they're just throwing it together. And that's where a lot of the material that's out there for businesses accommodates that mentality. Oh, you got to start it from the ground up and build. No, 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 no. You have to know where you're building it to. And here's the thing. I was looking this up and they're like, oh, well, you're a small business if you make less than $40 million a year. And I'm looking at what I'm creating and I'm seeing my vision here and I'm going, I have a multi-billion-dollar company. Just because it's not making that much yet doesn't mean I shouldn't aspire to that. That's the heading. So I started to build like this, like everyone was telling me, and I'm like, no, this isn't working. And then I jumped up here. And now I'm up here building this thing. So I'm building it now up here on this level, and I'm noticing this vast change. And I went, wow, this is life. This is life. This is who we are. This is how everything in life is done. Now, I want to take this all and shift it over to you. I want to talk about how you can apply this for you, because this is it. When you are sitting in life and you hate yourself and you hate your life and you hate your job and you hate everything about where you are because you're not authentic and you don't know what's going on, I want you to go back to when you were hopeful, when you were in your 18, 19, 20-year-old, and you were thinking about who you were going to be when you grow up. And you had the whole world in front of you and you had dreams and you had ideas and you were like, I'm going to be this kind of a person. It's the person you saw and visioned before the world told you you couldn't have it. That is you. That is the real you. That is who you really are. Just because you're not that doesn't mean you're not that. You're that already. Just by wanting it, just by dreaming of it, just by being it, you are it. You become it by wanting it. Everything in my life is built off of this process, from the dream down, not from the ground up. You do not build you from the ground up. That is where everyone fucks this up. This is where our parents fuck it up for us, because they tell us, oh, you got to start at the bottom. No, you fucking don't. You do not have to stop at the bottom. That is a lie that they tell you to keep you poor so you stay with them. It is fucking bullshit. You do not start at the ground up. No one starts from the ground up because we dream. The dream is the heading. As soon as you dream, you're not starting from the ground up. You are starting from the dream down. And this is how it's done. Because if you want to get here, you have to see it, you have to want it, you have to imagine it, and then you have to believe it. That is manifestation. Only manifestation has been bastardized by people who just want money. And that's not how that works. That's a bastardization of something beautiful that people don't understand. You have to dream it. You have to want it. You have to see it. You have to vision it. And then you have to shoot for it. And it's like you're practicing. You shoot for it and you do one of these. And you're like, oh, shit, let's try it again. And you shoot for it and you're going to get closer and you're going to fail. That's okay. Shoot for it again. Keep shooting for it, because eventually you'll get up here. And then you get to stay up here. And when you get up here, now you're in my world. Now let's talk. When you finally land, it's like you're at level one of being awesome. This is it. This is the land of awesome. Okay. And you have arrived and you are at level 1 of awesome. It's like, imagine you're in a Mario Brothers game and you're running around in these world, and you see this fantastical cloud realm. And the only way to get you to the cloud realm is to literally catapult. I really hope they play this. They create this video game, because it'd be awesome. You can play on this ground level, but the real video game is up there in the cloud. And in order to get there, you have to see it, you have to envision it, and you have to unlock it, and you have to jump it. And in order to do that, you've got to do a whole lot of prep work down here to make yourself ready for this catapult, because that's the goal. So you do all the training. And then you're ready and you're like, all right, let's do this. And then you go and you shoot for it and you need to train more. So you keep going. And when you finally land on that upper level, now you've arrived at the real game and you're at level 1. Now you're where you need to be. Now you're talking your level. Now you're who you want to be. Now you just got to practice and you're going to perfect it. And this is where life happens. This is where it's fucking awesome. But this isn't what we're taught. This is not what we are taught. What we are taught is that you live down here and you have to stay down here. And this is where your parents live. And this is where you're accepted and you're loved and you belong. And it's not who you are. So you go about your shitty fucking job that you hate. You marry somebody you can barely tolerate. You have kids that you can't stand because they remind you of everything you fucking hate. And you're miserable. And you have more trauma than you can understand because, well, you're not where you belong. You belong up there. You belong on that real game level. But you never were taught how to get up there. And that's the problem. You were taught that you have to build your way and claw your way. So there's a whole lot of people stopping on each other, pushing people down, trying to get up to there, and they have no idea how to do it. And it's because they think they have to work from the ground up. No, dream down. By the time you're 18, you should have gotten all the training from your parents to make that jump proper. But you didn't because your parents are incompetent, because your parents were fucking clueless and were mentally messed up. They were not capable of parenting you because they're too broken. Really, as soon as we start accepting our failures and our disappointments in our parents, our world is going to really improve. We have to stop deifying our horrible parents. We really do. Because once you start accepting how horrible your parents were, how much they don't love you, because they're that fucked up that they can't love properly, it puts everything into perspective. And suddenly you realize what it is you're really dealing with. You're dealing with a bunch of broken people who are too fucked up to have had you to begin with. And that is a really ugly reality that no one wants to look at because we're too busy deifying our parents and honoring our mother and our father. And it's fucking us up. It's really fucking us up, and it's holding us back. There is nothing wrong with admitting that your parents are horrible and putting that into perspective, that they never loved you properly. And if they loved you, it was most likely with a mental illness and not with actual love, because they don't know who they are and they don't know what they want to love anybody else. So you were an emotional prosthetic. We all were. Accept that. That way you can take care of you properly. You need the perspective to adjust. So you get up to that level. And when you get to the level, you can start actually living who you need to be. You can actually start being authentic, because when you get to that level, that's when you get unconditional belonging, because you're finally with the people you need to be with. You finally are with the people you need. And it's a game changer. You realize your true potential. Your true potential is where you dream of yourself being. It's where you wanted to be when you were 15, 16, 17 years old. When your dreams were going crazy and you were thinking about all the things you were going to do in life. And then you get to 35, 45 and you're going, wow, this fucking sucks. This is not what I wanted at all. What happened? What happened was you stopped dreaming. You stopped imagining something different and something better. So it really is living from the dream down. And if you're not dreaming anymore, that's the problem. If you're not imagining anymore, that's the problem, because that is your heading telling you where it is you need to go in life. So if you're not imagining and if you're not dreaming, you're drifting. And most likely you are drifting through a life that your abusive, mentally ill parents designed for you, which is the problem. Authenticity begins at that level, not down here in the sludge where your parents told you have to be, because they couldn't have anything different. They projected their incompetence onto you. They projected their mental illness and their own enslavement onto you. And it's just not fucking fair, and it's not realistic if you're going through life thinking that your parents are great. No, they're not. Because if your parents were great, you would be happy, you would be wealthy, you would be so fucking free and authentic that you wouldn't be looking online for videos to help you with your problems, because your parents fucked up. All of them did. And it's that real bitter truth, once you accept it, that your parents were too mentally ill to love you properly. Once you get that in your head, everything else makes sense. that there's nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with any of us. There's everything wrong with our parents projecting their bullshit onto us. And we're just trying to adapt to their bullshit. There's nothing wrong with you. Make sure you're not projecting your bullshit onto your kids, but be realistic that your parents projected their bullshit onto you. Once you do that, oh my God, does it change everything? It really does change everything. Because then you go, oh, there is nothing wrong with me. I was just trying to survive insanity. I was just Alice in Wonderland. It's like looking at Alice in Wonderland and then going, oh, look, Alice is broken because she doesn't fit into the insanity. No, no, no. The Wonderland is what was fucked up. And your Wonderland is created by your parents, your society, your system, your religion, your traditions, everything that tells you that you have to live by this vibrational frequency that is not yours. So that's my 2 cents about that. If you love shit like this, like, follow, subscribe, comment below. Tell me what part of the show resonated with you. And donate to the garden, help us grow. And if you want to jump into DIY Triadic Healing, it is free for now. I've got people telling me it shouldn't be. So for now, it's free. Grab it while you can. It's down below. Get started. And I literally walk people through the process of getting you from wherever it is you are to authentic living up on that awesome cloud. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.